Okay. Hello, everyone. We are back for another episode of the Eline podcast. Today, we are chatting with George Tsouris,
Yeah,
filmmaker. And then we have Ellie, and then I'm your host, Mark Rose. And yeah, so we're just chatting with George today. George, how are you?
I'm great. Nice to meet you, Mark and Ellie. Yeah, happy to be here.
Awesome. So, like, tell us a little bit about like who you are, what you do, so everyone knows who you are and what you do.
Sure. So my name is George Tsouris. I'm a filmmaker, musician, philosopher, all sorts of different things. And yeah, I'm right now in the middle of promoting Totem Chaser, the backdrop right behind me. It's a horror film about a TV crew or a video crew that likes haunted houses, that goes and does haunted houses, except this time they find a real haunted house, and the cult priestess who's in who owns the haunted house is trying to sacrifice them, uh, to her god, so she could bring her god into this world and rule the world. So yeah, crazy evil stuff like that. And then we see who survives and who succeeds in their goal there. Do they make the TV show, or do they make the video, or do they raise the god from hell or something like that? So yeah.
Leave that. Okay, so we're gonna get into Totem Chaser, but let's talk about you, your background.
Yeah.
When did you get into film? How long have you been into like filmmaking? How many projects? Like what's your history with filmmaking?
I've started filmmaking. I started kind of late, I feel like. It was 2008 when I made my first short film, but I realized, and I didn't know because I grew up in a place. I grew up actually in LA, right? But my family and such was such that I didn't know how films were made. I didn't even know that that was a real option, right? But somewhere along the way, I met a couple of friends who were like, "Yeah, I want to be a filmmaker." I'm like, "What do you mean a filmmaker?" They're like, yeah, how to make movies and stuff. I'm like, no, what is that? Is that a real thing actually? Can you do that? See, I was so out of touch that I didn't even know that was a possible like path, like artist or something like that. But I was always a musician too. And even then I was just like, how do you become a professional musician? You just gotta, go be a rock star or something, right? It's just like that. It just never dawned on me. So I started actually in 2008 when something just clicked, and I said, "Oh wow, this is something I can do." And I started making short animated films. So with the short animated films, I made about, I think, four short animated films on different ideas. I really liked the software and computer technology that was available to us. And it was like, I feel like I was born in exactly the right time where a jerk like me could make movies all by myself, basically. So I made some short animated films. 2008 was my first one. What was it? It was based on a Charles Bukowski short story called Ransom. After that, I don't know the exact order. I made a short film, based on a story. A Japanese friend of mine wrote a story about her and her little sister, so I turned that into a short animated film. I made another short animated film based on another Japanese short story by a Japanese writer from the early 20th century called Akutagawa Ryunosuke. The story is called Rashomon. And then I wrapped up my animation short film career with an H.P. Lovecraft short story called Music of Eric Zahn. And I really like that one just because I was, like I said, I wanted to combine music and filmmaking because music is so close to me. So yeah, in soul, basically. So I was like, wait, great short story to turn into a film. So I did that. I don't know what year that was. I think maybe 2014 was the last animated film I made. And since then, I picked up and saw some movies like around town. Now I live in New York. I've lived in New York since 2000, even though I was born in LA. And I remember going to the Tribeca Film Festival one year, and there was a film there, an animated film called Terra by a Canadian filmmaker named Aristomenes Sirbas. I think it was his name. A Greek
Yeah.
Canadian. So that's why it connected with me. I'm like, wait, there's a Greek guy making making animated films. They're showing at the Tribeca Film Festival. That's awesome. So I like the film, and I said, I want to make a film that's going to show here in Tribeca before, and I don't know how I picked this age, but I said, before I turn 37, I'm going to get a film shown here at Tribeca. Well, that didn't happen before I'm 37, but still that dream stayed with me. And I said, yeah, I just want to make movies, right? Like I said, starting with those short animated films. And then at some point I decided to get cameras and do live action stuff. And I was like, oh, wow. I didn't even understand. Like I said, I'm quite stupid. So I don't quite understand even, I didn't understand back then how cameras even work. I thought it was super easy. Okay, you just click the button and it points and shoots whatever you're pointed at, right? But it's a little bit more complicated than that. And I realize that now. So yeah, I think my first short film that I made, the live action short film, I don't remember the year actually. Maybe it was 2017. Maybe it was 2017 or so, called Gemini Amulet. And I actually used, it was a detective story. It built up to this current one, Totem Chaser, because I wanted to build that world a little bit more. It was a horror film, or I wanted to do it like a horror movie, but like with a detective who's trying to figure out this horror stuff. And it's about this, my goodness, how it was so nuts, actually. I can't even wrap my head around it now, thinking back at it. I'm just like, hey, my goodness, what is this thing about? But yeah, a detective is trying to solve like a ghost mystery, basically. And he figures out that his own family is involved with it or something like that. So that was, I think in 2017, one of my first live action short film. And that was about 20 minutes long or so. I just wanted to make like a 10-minute or even shorter short film, but then it just kept on building on. I actually, no, as a matter of fact, it was so funny because I wanted to make two different short films. I said, wait a second, this might be nice if I just hammer them both together and, yes, make them one long movie instead. In any case, it was fun. I learned a lot through that process. And, then after that, I made, a couple of other short films. Some friends had written some short films that they wanted filmed. So I said,
how did you collab with people? Like, when you first started, like, how did that start? Did you just go out and did you find like events or, things like that?
Yeah. That's a good question. And it's so funny too, because, with animation, and by the way, after making this movie, this feature film, I almost want to go back to animation. And really? I'll tell you why, because, certainly. Yes. I definitely want to go back to animation.
So much to get animations done. So I feel like a lot of people there's so much work to get animations done. So like for some
without question. Yeah. There's a ton, yeah, there's definitely a ton it's so much harder. And now that I've done it now, but the reason I say that is because, to answer your question, is because I went crazy making this movie because it's a feature. This is my first feature film, Totem Chaser.
Your first feature. Wow. And congrats.
Yeah, right. This is my first feature film. Oh, well, thank you. And because it drove me crazy, I thought maybe I should just go back to animation where it's only me. Right. Yeah. And I did everything in the animation when I made animated films. But with these live action films, I realized, exactly to your point, Mark, I had to collaborate, man. And it's all a collaboration, and it's all finding people and finding people you trust, because along those ways, I made several short live action films, documentaries to narrative things and other things as well, music videos too. And along the way, you learn how to manage people and how to work with people and how to trust people too, because that was funny. Some people just disappeared sometimes along the way, which was kind of crazy, disappointing. But I mean, that's part of the game when you meet people and stuff. I think for my first live action film, though, what was it called? Gemini Amulet. I found people on Craigslist, man. I put an ad on Craigslist and I said, hey, man, who wants to be in a short movie? I got a stack of, what do you call them, resumes and headshots. And I was like, okay, let's do this. I've since tried to use Craigslist again, but they don't like it or something. There's something about the wording that they say, you can't do this on Craigslist. And I think it was because of, yeah, the way I worded some things. I wanted to make some music videos, and they're like, and I listen, I don't know what they thought, but they
Yeah.
said, hey, you can't put this kind of ad
So
on
okay,
Craigslist.
so with
And
now
I was like,
having the finished product with Totem
oh
Chaser,
yeah.
are you at least like, are you proud of it? Are you happy with the outcome?
Um, yes, I guess. Yeah. It's not 100% done yet. We did a screening last Wednesday, as a matter
Yeah,
of
how
fact,
was it?
a preview screening. I mean, it was very fun, very successful. It was nice to put it in front of other people's eyeballs.
Mhm.
Um, a lot of the cast, a lot of the crew were there, and they brought friends and stuff. So that was nice to just get a lot of different input. And because of that, now I'm like, okay, wait a second, I got to tweak this, I got to tweak that now before I send it out for the film festivals. So it's like always a work in progress. One thing that I really wanted, one goal that I had in mind, because I love filmmaking now, right? One goal that I had in mind though was because all my short films were short films, and I'm not sure. I mean, I've been talking to a lot of people and stuff like that. Like you said, how do we find people to collaborate with? I mean, there's social media now. There's so many other resources. I don't use Craigslist anymore, but I mean, I have started to talk with a lot of other filmmakers and things, and it seems to me, or I came to the conclusion, maybe I'm wrong, but at least my understanding of the media landscape is that it's really hard. I mean, listen, it's really hard to make money off of feature films, but it's even harder to make money off of short films. And I'm just like, wait a second. I want to
Yeah.
actually make something that I could sell. And so I went for the feature film. And not only that, but like I said, I've worked in music before too. I've written stage plays, stage musicals, and
Mhm.
things like this for live stage. And they were always big. It's like a neurosis I have, right? That I don't like thinking small. And I'm just like, yeah, the short film is nice, but I want something bigger.
Yeah.
So it's always thinking big now. And I mean, in my own mind, yeah, I'll make music videos for friends and stuff. I'm working on some music videos right now, as a matter of fact, short films for other people if they want to hire me for that. But for my own soul, I guess, and for my own projects, I only want to make feature films now. Why? Because my
Mhm.
goal is to sell them.
Right.
And so that's another part of the process right now. So back to your question that you asked a few minutes ago. Now, Mark, I get this way sometimes,
Yeah.
but I come back to your question, which was, am I proud of it? I mean, it's the process isn't over yet, man. It's all the journey. It's all the process of it, And yes, I enjoy the process. I'm proud of making my way through the process. So, but the process definitely isn't over yet. So I had that first preview screening.
Mhm.
I consider it successful. However, now we got to do a festival campaign,
Yeah.
right? I think that's the next step. I'm going to polish, like I said, tweak a few
Yeah.
things from it, and push out that festival campaign, and push out a marketing campaign,
Right.
and look for distributors, and do that sort of stuff. And yeah, keep the ball rolling. So
Ball
it's
rolling this project.
yeah, I don't have time to be proud or happy with anything yet.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, there's more work to be done. There's more work to be done. And as a matter of fact, because there's more work to be done, and I want to,
Ellie, I feel like you
yeah,
have a
yeah,
question.
I do, but I want to go.
please.
I want
I'm
to wait for
sorry.
you. But you're good. You're good. On a roll, like I'm letting you do your thing. Like I like your mind. It's great. So like keep
Oh,
going.
sure.
Keep going. Keep going. You're
Oh,
fine.
thanks. Yeah. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, this is now that the film is, 95% done, maybe 98% done.
Yeah.
I'm already starting to write the sequel to this,
Oh
or
wow.
my follow up too. I mean, I wrote it while making this too, or in the post production process too. So now I pulled it back out. I said, okay, wait, we got to start making this thing. I'm hoping to get it into production this summer. I've got the funds together more or less. We're trying to figure out all the ifs, ands, and dot the i's and cross the t's on numbers for different things. But yeah, I'm hoping to get that into production this summer. But while this thing is still in the process of going out there, and of course meeting new people and things like that. So yeah, am I proud? I mean, it's if I'll be honest with you, every time, and I've got this again, another weird neurosis of mine, is that if I give myself a chance to think about it, I'll I sometimes get depressed, man, after a project is done, because after a project is done, and this has been, you know, all my life, when I make musicals, when I've made other short films and things like that, is once it's done, then I'm like, well, now what? You know, I can't sit back and go, oh, that was great, man. Yeah, you know, or something like that. It's just like, okay, now what? So I'm, yeah, the ball keeps on rolling so that I don't, again, perhaps it's a neurosis of mine, but I just want to keep it going and not really think of the pride or anything like that. I saw people laugh at the movie. I saw people jump at the parts that I wanted them to jump. So I feel like it was successful. We'll see how successful it is when, Hollywood calls me up and says, here's $1 billion. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Speak that into existence.
That's it. So that's where I am right now.
Okay. So all right, I love the energy. I love like
thanks
your vibe. I love the ambition. I love like how forward thinking you are with everything in the project and knowing that it's important to keep it going. Me and Mark come from a similar situation of knowing how to keep it going. Because we did film, we still work on music, but like we heavily transitioned from film to this podcast. But for you, I want to back up and like turn the page back a little bit. Let's get to know. I want to know George a little bit and his transition from doing music and what inspires you as a musician. That you told us about how you got in contact with film and you're like, okay, this can be a career. But before that, you had gung-ho, I guess, with the music. You're writing musicals, doing stage plays. How did that start for you? What's the upbringing like? When it was just the passion before, we want to make a living with it, before any of that starts to become the reality of it? What was that?
Right. Listen, I don't know. It just kind of happens, I mean, that's the short answer. If you want me to give you the long answer, you better sit down for another 30 minutes before I keep on rambling. I mean, listen, I grew up playing. Neither of my parents played music really. But I remember in fourth grade, the band, the like school band had an assembly and said, hey, if you want to join the school band, look at all the different instruments you could play. And I said, I want to play saxophone. And the only reason I said saxophone is because it had more keys, more buttons on the instrument. And I remember specifically asking that question. How many keys does the trumpet have? Oh, it only has 3. I'm like, oh, that doesn't seem cool. And then flute and clarinet. I was like, I don't want to play flute and clarinet for reasons that were different to kids way back in the 1900s when I was a kid. So I said, yeah. So I said, wait, so how many keys does the saxophone have? They said 21. I go, yeah, that's the one I want. I want the one with the most keys. So, and the biggest one. So my mom and dad were certainly not affluent. They were working class folks, but they pulled enough money together and this is the thing about being poor too, right? Is if you want things, you actually pay more for it. It's funny that poor people actually have to pay more for things, right? And so they actually bought this saxophone from a music store, but it was like one of these rent to own saxophones. Oh, so yeah. If they would have just bought it all outright, it would have probably cost them a few $100s. But I think in the end, because they keep on like paying the interest for it, it was like a credit card that just kept going up. I think they paid a ton of money, but hey, they did what they could to help me and my brother do what we wanted, despite their limited means. And so I played saxophone as a kid, and that's how I learned music. But I remember taking saxophone lessons in the back of a music store one day. But the thing is, when you go to a music store, I think music stores, they make most of their money on guitars, because I'm walking through the music store and I see all these rock and roll guitars everywhere. And I'm like, man, I'm playing the saxophone. This is the uncoolest thing I could be playing. Look at all these rock guitars. I want to play electric guitar, man. And my parents, they're like, no, we bought you the saxophone. We can't be buying you every instrument you want. So I think when I was about 16, I got my first job. And with that first job, I think all summer, I only made like $200 because it was like only on Saturdays. But I used all that money to buy an electric guitar when I was 16. And I taught myself music through that, or, knowing the saxophone training that I had before too. But it was different because, well, I'm stupid, so I couldn't quite make the connection, right? So it was a slow going process. And so there was that I don't know if you want to call it that transition to music, like you said, Ellie, but because music is still here. I mean, I tell some people that the reason I made Totem Chaser is just so that I could score the movie, so I could write movie music. That was part of the reason. And I wrote all the music for the movie too. But there was always just this like urge. I remember when I was a kid, I don't know if you guys had this, Mark and Ellie, but when I was a kid, I remember telling my mom on like summer days, I tell her, Mom, I'm bored. What am I going to do? And they're like, man, go read a book. And I'm like, I'm not going to read a book. Read a book. That sounds like even worse. But for whatever reason, I got out of that. And now I'm never bored. I know that there's things I could do. And music is one of those things. Filmmaking, writing is one of those things. So I'm just never bored. How did I make that transition? I think it was because I'm just like, well, I'm bored. Oh, I got to go either read a book or write something or make something, So yeah, I just go out there and I do it, even going back to animation. How did I transition into animation? Even I have no background in animation or anything like that, but I just remember I was into comic books. That's where I was. Wow. I was really into comic books. And I went to a big comic convention in San Diego in Southern California when I was a kid. And yeah, when I was a kid, the San Diego Comic Con was big. But now I feel like it's bigger and it's too big and I can't go anymore because the tickets get sold out in 10 minutes or something like that. Yeah. But when I was a kid, I could actually go to the San Diego Comic-Con, and that was kind of like the family vacation. My mom would take me and my brother down there from LA. And one of the booths that was there was a booth of a company, a small animation software company that said, you can make your own animation with this software. Just buy this CD. And I had either $200 to buy a stack of comic books or $200 to buy this animation software. And I was like, okay, I want to buy that animation software. And it took forever to learn how to, they're like, oh, look how easy it is to animate on a computer. And man, those guys were a bunch of scam artists. I'm telling you that, because that was the hardest thing to learn how to do, was animate on the computer. But I eventually did it. And it took me at least before 2000, when I started animation, to 2008 until I really made my first animated film, so a long time of fits and starts. And I mean, going back to your question, Ellie, it's just because it was, I get bored, man. So I have to keep moving somehow. I mean, just like you said, right? You guys were into the filmmaking, and then things are like, wait, I'm not filmmaking right now. We got to do something. Let's do this podcast, right? Yeah. It's that sort of thing. At least that's how I work.
It was that way. There were a lot of moments in our lives that kind of like set the tone when you're not working with the right people. We weren't working with.
No, right.
That's a lesson learned, and we found that it's better to just. You kind of have to find like-minded individuals. Yeah. And I think sometimes there's a lot of narcissism in the industry that we, enjoy so much of entertainment, and people get caught up more on feeding their ego versus creating. That causes a lot of friction, unnecessary friction that neither one of us, me and Mark, care about at all. But to the average person that doesn't have the overall bigger goal like yourself, they can't see that. It's just like feeding their ego at that moment in time. And that's human nature. So like, it was big for us to separate ourselves, to evolve. And that's just slowly where we're just at a place when lifestyle is matching our desires, required, everything's matching. It's a balance. And I just didn't like always being on the go and constantly, because I did that a long time, several years in a row. I was just like making films, or I was dealing with my business when it came to like baking and stuff like that. And that was just like, I don't know how I even did that. I think it was like, I don't know how I even lived, because it seemed like every other moment I was at a festival working. I was either at a festival working, I was baking something for somebody that was an order due, or we were recording, making a film. And it was just like back to back to back. And like, sounds cool, but it was very much so exhausting. And 2020 was, the pandemic was the best thing for us.
Right.
How did Is this when Totem started for you? The pandemic? Is that when you got started? The ball started
No,
rolling.
it's so funny you say that. Yeah. Ultimately, it really was. And just like you said, there was this weird lull in a lot of other things, and I thought I was smarter. I'll be honest with you. I thought I was smarter. I thought my mental stability was on key and stuff like that, and it just wasn't. And that pandemic proved to me how ridiculous I still am and how foolish I still am. And I dove deep into other problems, like psychological problems too. And I was lucky to work through those things. And in working through those things, like you said, I mean, I love how you said it too, Ellie, because it is about people, man. It really is about people. And that's, I think, the number one thing I love about filmmaking is to, find wonderful people and beautiful people to work with. I was very lucky to find amazing people to work with to make Totem Chaser over the last few years. And it was exactly, though, that chance in the pandemic where my work became my other work became, how can you say, it became pandemic sized, and it gave me the chance to say, wait a second, I'm gonna finish this feature film finish writing this feature film that I've been wanting to write. Actually, somebody reached out to me and said, George, you want to be on this, like a, what would you call it, like a writing support group, basically, or writing, I don't know how to call these things, but yeah, something where she was writing her thing, I was writing my thing, but we were just checking in with each other saying, hey, did you get through the first 30 pages and stuff? And I didn't do as well as she did on that, but it helped me, it motivated me, because that's kind of my another neurosis that I have, is that if I'm working by myself, it's hard to motivate myself. What really motivates me is other people, and other people telling me and counting on me and helping me. That really motivates me, because then I'm like, wait, I can't let those people down. And that's why I have to do this. And that's why I have to keep going. So being in this writing team up, I don't know how to call these things, but this writing workshop with this girl really motivated me to finish this script. And then the pandemic gave us the chance to say, wait a second, this is something. Because I'm not really working, and let's get everybody else together and see what we can get done. I think we can film this film really quick. It was quick to film the project, but the post-production was a long time and a long, arduous process. But it was really the pandemic that lit the fire under my butt, so to speak, and said, hey, this is the opportunity you want, man. Why don't you go and take care of business? So yeah, it really pulled everybody else together, and we said, listen, we're ready to make a movie. We've been sitting on our butts for too long. And being independent too. I mean, you read, or I read at least, a lot of these articles about Hollywood, let's say, and even here in New York, where people are, there's a lot of rules to follow, right? I'll say that. And especially around the pandemic, there was a lot of rules to follow around the pandemic, that because I'm independent, I was just like, we don't got to follow those rules. Right. I don't, we trusted each other, and we didn't spit in anybody's face or anything like that. So we were safe. We weren't coughing on each other and things like that. So yeah, it was, hey, that was really nice to get that independent spirit going. And this isn't exactly your question, but you asked a similar question earlier, which was, how is this kind of like music? And well, when I was a kid, or younger at least, I like forming rock bands in like the garage, right? All you needed was to find a drummer, a bass player, a guitarist, and a singer. And if somebody could do two of those things at once, like singing and guitar, then you only need three people, right? And I even was in bands with only two people. But there was that like rock, that garage band sort of punk rock mentality that I loved. That was just like, let's just go do this. Because, listen, in Hollywood, there's no 3-person film crews, right? Or things like that. It was just like, wait, let's do this like we're punk rock kids, and we're just going to make this thing happen. I don't know what rules we broke or things like that, but I imagine that Steven Spielberg doesn't make movies the way I do, and that's fine. God bless Steven Spielberg, right? But I want to be that sort of punk rock sort of mentality that lets me do things in a way that makes things happen, you know? And yeah, I don't know. I was never at film school, so I don't know if they would teach you to do things the way I did it in film school, but I figured, hey, if I make a feature film, I basically went to, I learned a lot. I learned a lot, right? And so it's, yeah, there's just that punk rock mentality that's, hey, let's do it our way. And the pandemic, yeah, it's so funny that you bring up the pandemic, Ellie, because it really did afford us the opportunity to bring everybody together and really pull through, man. And yeah, I loved it. I loved it. And the collaboration too. I'm so sorry to hear about your horror stories. I've certainly got my horror stories too.
Thing
Yeah.
of the past. Thing of the
Yeah.
past.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But you, and I learned from them too. You know, how many people have I, you know, had lined up, not just for movies, not just for short films, but yeah, even back to my stage days and the production days, stage production days that, yeah, people just didn't show up. And it's like, oh, wow, we got a show tomorrow, man. You know, we need somebody to sing this role and learn this role. And that was, yeah, a lot of thinking on your feet, man.
Okay, George.
But that's what happened. Yeah. Yeah. Talk to me.
Okay, so let's talk more about the story of Totem Chaser because
Sure.
I know it's a slasher. I like slasher films and horror a lot, so I just want to know more about it.
Yeah, well, like I said, there is a video crew that loves haunted houses,
Yeah, yeah.
and they find a haunted house. Actually, yeah, they start out with these other haunted houses because, well, between me and you, Mark, don't let anybody else know this, but I think all that stuff that's on TV, those TV haunted house shows, I'm not sure they're all legit. You know, I'm not sure those guys are all on the level, right? And so that's kind of how the movie starts. Is they're trying to figure out how to make this work, despite the fact that it's all a bunch of BS, you know. But they do get a call. They get a call from somebody that says, "Wait, I got a real haunted house for you." And they're like, "Okay, great. Let's go because this is our last chance before we lose all our money." And lo and behold, it's actually a cult priestess who wants to take advantage of them, basically, and say, "Yeah, listen, I'll let you shoot your haunted house, but in the process of that, we realize that the haunted house is a
Yeah.
real haunted house, so to speak."
So is it like
And
one like killer after them?
I don't know if you would call it a killer because it is kind of like a cult sort of thing.
Oh
So
yeah.
there's a lot of ambiguity. There's certainly the cult priestess who's the main antagonist,
Okay.
and but then there's also some ghosts in it that the cult priestess had. Well, I won't give you all the story, but there are some ghosts in there,
Yeah.
and there's of course the demon that comes that they're trying to raise too. So yeah, there's a little bit of like that too. So it's
I'm
kind of in your face and things like that, and then a little bit of like demonic possession as well. So yeah.
I want to see this. Like, are you planning on having? Yeah, I want to see it. I gotta see it. So, are you
It's
planning
gonna
on
be
having
on
this in
TV.
DVDs?
Yeah, yeah. Well, right now, like I said, we had this screening last week, I think Wednesday, and it was a lot of fun. I am going to make a few tweaks on it and then send it out to festivals. So it's going to be traveling the world. I'm going to try to figure out the best festivals that really are suited for this kind of project and see what happens there. Hopefully, try to network, make more collaborations, and see other people that are interested in this kind of film and that want to help us bring it to the world. You know, of course, I could put it all on YouTube right now, but I think I want to. And of course, I could do that, but I want to see if we can get it a little bit better distribution and a better collaboration with a good marketing team too. And I'm hoping that the film festival campaign will put me in touch with people who are best suited towards that sort of project, which is, yeah, getting it out in front of people's eyes. I mean, and this kind of thing. Thank you guys, Mark and Ellie, so much for bringing me here tonight because, yeah, this is part of, you know, bringing it in front of people's eyes and getting people excited for it. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm hoping that the film festival campaign, well, I'm not quite sure how long that should take, maybe about a year or so. And by that time, we'll see how it goes. I mean, yeah, bottom line is, yeah, you're right. At the end of this, I could just put it all on YouTube or Amazon or something like that. And we'll see what comes of that. But
Yeah.
that's, yeah,
What works best? So, like, if you're like
that's it.
talking
Yeah.
to me, like filmmaker, like aspirational like filmmaker, what would you tell them?
Oh boy, man, you asked the wrong person. Here's what I would say. And this sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but I would say don't do it, man. Yeah, you want to be a filmmaker? No, don't do it. Right. And the reason I say that is because if that discourages you, then you don't belong in this game, man, because it's hard.
I like that.
You know, if you let me tell you not to make a movie, then you shouldn't be making movies, man.
Exactly. I like that.
You know, but you know, you ask some stupid guy with a mustache what he thinks, man. Come on, if you really want to be a filmmaker, you'll be a filmmaker.
You're doing
yeah,
it.
that's how I feel about it. Yeah, exactly.
What
exactly.
I like is that you have passion because, like you said, you didn't go to like art school or like a film school or anything like
Right.
that. And you just one day said, "Hey, I want to try this. I want to do this," and you pretty much taught yourself. Also, with the help of other people, like as you're filming this, that, and the third. But you're like a self-taught and experienced filmmaker, and you should like be proud of yourself. So yeah.
Oh, well, thanks. I guess. You know, but there's a lot of people who really helped me through this process. There's a ton of people that really, and that's what I love about filmmaking, actually, is it's not a one-man process. I can make a musical album all by myself. Right. I got the guitars, I got the piano, I got the drums over there, I got the computer. I could do that all by myself. I don't think I could do that with filmmaking. And so I'm so lucky to have found a good group of people that helped me through this. They certainly taught me a lot, you know, whether it's the actors certainly taught me a lot. The other folks with the technical abilities, like with camera and audio, they taught me a lot. So yeah, it really was something to really go by. Yeah, I guess that would be the number one piece of advice. And I guess you guys have already said it though, right? If you want to be a filmmaker, go find good people to work with, man. And just make it happen. Right. I think that's kind of what that's what I'm most proud of, is that I nurtured this community towards this project. And yeah, it was really tough, but that was really nice. And working with so many wonderful people was the learning experience for me. Yeah.
Right. Okay. In about like 15, 20 seconds, can you tell people where you can find you at online?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram. I'm not sure what my Instagram is. I think it's George Tsouris. I think that's what it is. I think that's where I'm most capable. I've got a website out there somewhere called george.tsouris.net. What else? I've got YouTube stuff with other kinds of documentary kind of things. So yeah, I've got different things. I wish I was better suited for that kind of thing. But if you really want to find me, you can find me. Email me and let me know what you want to know. You know, it's not that hard to find me. Yeah.
So George, we just want to thank you for joining the Elon podcast.